Assalamualaikum and welcome to another episode of Great People TV with me, Ben Ibrahim, and my partner in crime, my co-host, Ana Ismail. Nah, apa khabar? Sehat?
I'm way
Alhamdulillah.
nervous than usual, but I'm really excited.
Well,
Alhamdulillah.
stay excited now because it gives us great pleasure to welcome our guest, the one and only, the fourth and seventh Prime Minister of Malaysia, yang amat berbahagia, Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad. Tun, Assalamualaikum and welcome to Great People TV. How are you?
Waalaikumsalam. I'm fine, thank you.
Fantastic.
Alhamdulillah. And it's good to see that all three of us are wearing the same color, white.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah.
White Wednesday, as they call it. Tun, thank you so much for agreeing to this interview. You're such an inspiration. Tapi Tun, kita nak tanya, and this interview will be done in Malay and English. I'll be asking the Bahasa England questions. Tapi the first question that we'd like to ask you, we don't want to ask the obvious questions which you probably answered a million times before. Your resignation last year as Prime Minister, with the benefit of hindsight, do you still believe that was the right decision to do?
Yeah, I still believe I did the right thing because what happened was that my own party, Bersatu, pulled out of of PH, and together with Azmin, which means that PH ceases to be the government. Now, if if PH is not the government, I cannot be the Prime Minister, because I was Prime Minister from Bersatu in PH. And if PH is not the government, how could I be the Prime Minister? So when I decided that since my own party has lost faith in me and rejected my advice, I should pull out as chairman of the party. And if I am not the chairman of the party, I cannot be the Prime Minister. So all along, I had no choice but to resign as Prime Minister. Otherwise, I would be thrown out anyway.
Okay, that's very. Thank you for sharing that. Now.
Ya, Tun, katalah Tun tak letak jawatan pada ketika itu. Apa sebenarnya antara perkara yang mungkin Tun akan buat before the next election? What would you have done differently back then?
Well, there was not much choice. Since my own party decided to leave PH, then the PH will collapse. So what can I do? I cannot, even if I stay back with PH and want to be the Prime Minister, but PH is not going to be the government. So I felt that if I resign, but later on in wanting to choose another replacement for me, if my name is put down as a candidate and the members of parliament, 222 of them, were to vote, if they give me full support, I would still be Prime Minister. But unfortunately, as you know, PH, we should be supporting me, naming me as their candidate, decided to name Anwar. And as a result, he got only 92 votes because those are PH votes. And I got 62. But if PH had voted for me, I would have got that 92 plus the 62 I got from other members. I would have 154. And then I would be the Prime Minister again. But it was PH, and in particular Anwar, who claimed that he had the majority, and therefore he should be named as PH candidate. But as usual, Anwar, when he claims he has the majority, he didn't have. He didn't have the majority. He had only 92 votes from PH. His claim that Sabah and Sarawak supported him is not valid, not true. So he got 92 and lost. I got 62 and lost. And subsequent to that, the PH came to see me and they asked me to be their candidate again. I put down conditions. because I feel that if Anwar is in the group, I might lose. We might lose because there is a lot of Malay dislike for Anwar. But eventually he agreed that he would not be named as the Deputy Prime Minister. So we then agreed that we will make another bid to get the members of parliament, 222 members of parliament, to make a second choice. And in fact, we gathered 114 supporters, which means we were in the majority. Now, unfortunately, somehow or other, Muhyiddin has told the king that he had the majority. And the king appointed him. Once the king appointed him, I couldn't even see the king. I asked to see the king. I asked to have an interview to show that I had the majority, but the king refused to see me, and uh, very and decided that Muhyiddin is going to be the prime minister, would take his oath of office on the next day. So that was what actually happened.
Then?
Sorry, we just do apologize for the technical difficulty. Sorry, Tun, can you just
Okay,
we just lost you sekejap.
I see. Tak apa, no worries. Tapi pada pandangan kita semua, the past is past. Kita sekarang ni sedang bergerak ke hadapan. InsyaAllah kita nak move forward. Pada pandangan Tun lah kan, apa yang Tun rasa, Tun lihat perspektif Tun semasa Tun memimpin dan menjadi Perdana Menteri pada Perdana Menteri keempat dan juga yang ketujuh kepada negara ini?
Bagi saya, bila saya jadi Perdana Menteri nombor 4, saya tidak sangka saya boleh jadi Perdana Menteri because saya the only Perdana Menteri who is not from the elite group, from the top people. I mean, I was not a member of royalty or even a senior member of the state. I was the son of a teacher. That was my background. But somehow or other, the youth in particular supported me strongly. So even when I was dismissed or thrown out of UMNO, they still supported me. And Tun Razak supported me. And when I came back during Tun Razak's time, he asked me to contest for election. I contested, I won, and he appointed me as minister, full minister. Very unusual, because normally you get appointed as deputy minister first. But I became full minister, and then the progress was very rapid. Tun Hussein didn't last very long. He was not well. He decided that he would retire, and he had named me as deputy prime minister, and I became prime minister. Now I have to lead the country. I have to be responsible for the progress of the country. And I had many ideas, even when I was not the prime minister, about how we can develop the country. And I put those ideas into action, and as a result, I was able to develop the country, especially the infrastructure, and the country became so progressive that it became known as the Asian Tiger, one of the Asian Tigers. And I was voted 5 times as leader of the UMNO and BN, and became Prime Minister for 22 years. Why I was there so long? I suppose it's because people were satisfied with whatever I did. Of course, lots of people make all kinds of accusations against me. They talk about my being corrupt, being a dictator, all kinds of things. But when it comes to election, I still won, and won with a very big majority, two-thirds majority, 5 times during my time. So it must be because I must have done something right. Otherwise, I don't think people are going. Supposing I had stolen money like Najib, I don't think I would last 5 elections. But I didn't steal any money.
Ben, over to you.
Yes, sorry Todd, you brought up, I was going to ask this question much later, tapi you brought it up tadi. I know Hannah said we move forward, tapi I nak move backwards sikit because it's a very interesting point, Tun. Datuk Sri Anwar, I mean, a lot of people in the media say you have this kind of relationship with him, you have that kind of relationship with him, not just from the past, but from the present as well. Can you tell us about the man? I mean, your relationship with him and his leadership capabilities and all of the above, because his name will always come into play when the word Prime Minister or the words Prime Minister is brought up.
Well, as everybody knows, I admitted him into UMNO against the wishes, the opinions of many UMNO leaders. I accepted him, and then during my time, he rose to become the deputy prime minister, which means that if I step down, he would be the prime minister. Unfortunately, he felt that I was there too long. He thought that after 10 years I would step down. But as you know, I stayed on for a long time. And when I seemed to continue to be prime minister and he has to wait a long time, I think he became very impatient, and he began to attack me from inside, for the party members, young leaders and all that, including Zaid Hamidi, attacked me for being for practicing cronyism, for being a dictator, for being corrupt and all that. I proved that I was not all those. I could show that it was Anwar who was helping his friend. But at that stage, the police made a report. They came to see me. In fact, 3 years before that, Hanif, the IGP, reported some wrongdoings on the part of Anwar. I ignored that. I didn't want to do anything. I thought maybe the police didn't like him. But 3 years after that, the police came to see me again to report about his wrongdoings. I had to refer these things to first all the heads of all the states, UMNO leaders in all the states, and then I had a meeting of the Supreme Council, and all of them were of the view that Anwar cannot be in the party. They didn't want him to be the deputy prime minister, but they didn't want him to be even a member of the party. This is a decision made by the Supreme Council. 2 rounds. In fact, Anwar was there. I asked Anwar, you have heard what they say. Can you defend yourself? Initially, he spoke, but when he was asked to defend himself, he refused. He walked out. And then we had a second round. Everybody voiced their opinion, and everybody was of the view. I think there was only 2 or 3 people who disagreed, but all the members of the Supreme Council said that Anwar is not uh, fit to be a member of the party, so he should be sacked as deputy prime minister and sacked as a member of the party. That was the decision of the Majlis Tertinggi. It's not just my decision. I brief Majlis Tertinggi about what happened, about the report by the police, and they made the decision. But of course, everybody said that I deliberately engineered to have Anwar removed. But I was the one who brought him in against the wishes of the others. But anyway, he was subsequently tried. It took 9 months. The trial was for 9 months, and he was sentenced to prison. It's not my doing. I don't. For example, recently when I did not join Mohideen, and he switched to the opposition party, he actually sacked me from the party. He didn't accuse me of anything. He just sacked me. And he sacked a lot of people. I didn't sack anybody. I had to go through the usual process of going to the court. Of course, people say, well, I manipulated the court. What is there to show that I manipulated the court? So the decision was for the courts. And so Anwar was jailed. And because of that, of course, he couldn't contest.
And in your personal opinion, yes or no answer, do you think he will ever be Prime Minister of Malaysia?
I don't think so, because he doesn't have the support.
Okay. Now,
Okay. Yes, okay. Terima kasih Tun di atas jawapan itu. Tun, kalau 64 tahun lalu kita berperang melawan penjajah. Tahun ini kita melawan pandemik ataupun dah jadi endemik dah pun. And the world has been gravely affected from the pandemic. Be it having loss of people, means of income, changes to how we function as a society, so many abrupt changes. But at the same time, dia macam Allah ni nak given us an opportunity tau untuk kita reset and rethink our relationship dengan dunia dan juga manusia. Dan Tun pula sudah bersama dengan kita buat satu tempoh yang sangat lama, dan insya-Allah kami doakan agar Tun akan terus bersama membina negara kita. Tun dah lihat pelbagai peristiwa kan. Pada pandangan Tun lah secara peribadi, adakah pandemik ini merubah sisi pandangan Tun terhadap certain issues, dan apa antara perkara positif yang kita boleh pelajari hasil dari berdepan musibah pandemik ini?
Ya, yang kita tahu ialah COVID-19 ini menyerang seluruh dunia. Seluruh dunia. Jadi seluruh dunia mempunyai satu common enemy. Sepatutnya seluruh dunia bersatu dan menangani masalah ini sebagai satu masalah yang melibatkan seluruh dunia, bukan mana-mana negara. Tetapi seperti mana kita tahu, masing-masing mengadakan usaha mereka untuk selamatkan negeri mereka, negara mereka saja, terutama Donald Trump. Ini menyebabkan kita menjadi lemah. Kalau kita bersatu sebagai a world under attack by a common enemy, saya yakin kita boleh selamatkan ramai daripada kita. Jadi saya sebagai seorang yang dilatih sebagai doktor, saya faham virus, apa dia virus ini dan cara mana nak lawan dengan virus. Jadi kita dapati bahawa cara-caranya ialah dengan mengadakan SOP. But saya lihat, walaupun kita perkenalkan SOP dan lockdown, tetapi kita tidak awasi apa yang dilakukan oleh orang ramai. Mereka tidak patuh kepada SOP. Ramai daripada mereka, sebagai contoh, bila kita pergi sembahyang umpamanya, kita duduk berjauh-jauhan mengikut SOP. Habis sembahyang, kita bersama-sama turun nak balik. Pada masa itu kita tak observe SOP. Pada masa itulah yang kita dapat jangkitan. Jadi kita tak disiplin. Itu SOP. Kadang-kadang kita pakai mask, kadang-kadang kita tak pakai mask, kita tak basuh tangan. Ini cara mencegah jangkitan. tapi kita tidak amalkan. Dan pihak pemerintah pula tidak cuba memaksa orang ramai patuh kepada SOP. Bila tak buat betul-betul SOP, maka ramailah yang akan dijangkiti dan jumlah kes baru tiap kali meningkat. Terutamanya apabila mereka mengadakan pilihan raya di Sabah. Pilihan raya kita tahulah, kita berkumpul, mendengar syarahan dan sebagainya. Dan pada masa itulah kita dijangkiti dan kita dapati orang daripada Semenanjung juga pergi ke Sabah, dapat sakit, dijangkiti dan mereka balik ke Semenanjung, dan pada masa itu kita lihat angka kes baru meningkat dengan cukup tinggi. Saya lihat pihak kerajaan tak tahu macam mana nak kurangkan kes baru. Mereka SOP pun mereka tak dapat laksana dengan berkesan. Lockdown pun tak betul. Kemudian kita dapati ada vaksin. Vaksin kita lambat. Orang lain dah guna vaksin, kita baru nak uji vaksin. Saya tak tahu pasal apa nak uji. Vaksin yang kita nak guna ini sudah digunakan oleh negara lain dan telah disuntik kepada bermilion-milion orang. Apa perlu kita nak buat ujian? Tetapi demikianlah birokrasi di Malaysia ini, sehingga kita lambat memulakan vaccination. Dengan itu angka meningkat sehingga 25,000 orang satu hari. Walhal waktu mula tak sampai pun 100. Saya lepas tu naik. Jadi ini menunjuk bahawa kegagalan dalam menangani wabak ini. Saya ada idea. Pasal saya latar belakang doktor satu, dan saya telah handle banyak krisis, dan saya ingat saya berjaya lah juga handle krisis. Saya minta supaya saya diberi kuasa untuk tangani masalah ini, tetapi ditolak bulat-bulat. Itu yang menyebabkan angka meningkat sehingga 25,000 orang satu hari dijangkiti dengan COVID-19 ini.
Ben, sebenarnya saya sempat terserempak dengan Tun pada bulan Mac tempoh hari yang lalu, biar dilangkaui bila Tun mendapatkan first vaccination beliau bersama dengan Tun Siti Hasmah. Atas sebab mengikuti SOP, saya tak dapatlah nak bergambar dengan Tun, tapi itu antara benda yang saya rindulah, untuk bergambar dengan pemimpin. Kalau Tun lah, apa yang paling Tun rindukan untuk buat kalau tak adalah pandemik ini?
Kalau tak ada epidemik, masalahnya ialah masalah ekonomi. Ekonomi terjejas sekarang kerana wabak COVID ini menghalang kita bergerak seperti biasa. Kita terpaksa asingkan diri kita daripada orang lain. Bermakna bahawa kita tidak boleh go shopping, kita tak boleh berniaga, kita tak boleh buat kerja, kita tak boleh dedahkan diri kita supaya berdekatan dengan orang lain. Jadi ini menghalang ekonomi aktiviti kita. Dengan itu ekonomi pula merosot. Jadi kalau kita nak tackle ekonomi, kita mesti tackle pandemik dulu. Dan kita mesti tahu cara. Dan ada banyak cara untuk, bukan kita hentikan jangkitan, tetapi untuk kita kurangkan jangkitan. Itu saya nak gunakan cara itulah, tapi saya tak diberi kuasa. Walaupun demikian, ada mereka yang datang daripada kerajaan, Menteri Keuangan umpamanya, datang jumpa saya, minta saya bagi tahu macam mana nak handle COVID ini. Saya bagi semua maklumat apa dia yang boleh buat. Tetapi unfortunately kerajaan tidak buat apa yang saya kata should be done, they didn't do. Instead, they just set up the same organization that I set up, accepting that it is to be run by the government, by the politician, and the politicians know nothing about how to handle a pandemic.
Itulah dia. Tun meluahkan sebenarnya kerinduan beliau untuk mengaktifkan kembali dan menjana kembali ekonomi negara kita kan. Tun, saya sebenarnya sempat membaca antara buku karangan Tun Siti Hasmah bertajuk My Name is Hasmah, dan antara sebenarnya perkara menarik dalam buku tersebut adalah Tun Siti Hasmah ni dia akan menulis semua peristiwa penting dalam keluarganya di belakang kitab Al-Quranul Karim. Dan saya rasa satu perkara yang sangat-sangat menarik mengenai Tun Siti Hasmah. Macam mana Tun sendiri dan Tun Siti Hasmah menyemai nilai-nilai Al-Quran dan Al Karim tu dalam keluarga dan juga dalam kepimpinan Tun sendiri?
Ya, saya apabila berada dalam politik dihadapkan dengan agama Islam sebagai alasan kenapa saya tak betul, saya salah, saya tak ikut. Jadi oleh kerana itu saya baca Quran. Kalau kita baca Quran dalam bahasa Arab, kita tak faham. Saya bukan boleh bahasa Arab, bolehlah sikit-sikit yang ada tu yang biasa kita guna. Tapi umumnya kalau saya baca sampai habis Quran pun, saya tak tahu apa dia ajaran Quran. Sebab itu saya pilih untuk baca Quran dalam bahasa Melayu yang saya faham dan bahasa Inggeris. Dan bila saya baca dalam bahasa Melayu dan Inggeris, saya dapati banyak panduan yang terdapat dalam Quran. Panduan baik-baik belaka. Yang mana saya yakin kalau kita ikut, kita akan berjaya. Tetapi kita tidak ikut. Ialah kita semayang, puasa, zakat, buat kerja haji dan semuanya. Kita mengucap 2 kalimah syahadat. Tetapi lain daripada itu, tak ramai daripada kita mengamalkan ajaran Islam. Sebagai contoh yang pertama, orang Islam ini adalah bersaudara. Tetapi kita tak bersaudara, kita bermusuh. Bermusuh dalam politik, bermusuh dari negara dengan negara, mengadakan revolusi, civil war. Jadi kita dilarang membunuh. Quran larang kita membunuh. Membunuh satu orang adalah sama dengan membunuh seluruh umat manusia. Tetapi kita dengan rela hati bunuh, termasuk bunuh orang Islam. Semua ini dilarang. Jadi kalau kita tak ikut larangan agama Islam, kita tak dapat nikmat daripada agama Islam. Kita cukup semayang sajalah. Kita semayang untuk akhirat. Tetapi yang diamalkan dalam Quran ni, dia mengajar banyak. Jangan tipu umpamanya. Kalau nak jual barang, kena timbang betul-betul. Kena guna penimbang yang betul, yang accurate. Semua ini ada dalam Quran. Saya baca Quran banyak kali pasal nak faham apa dia ajaran Islam. Akhirnya saya kumpul segala ajaran yang saya fikir adalah ajaran agama Islam. Saya keluarkan satu buku pun untuk menunjuk bahawa ajaran Islam ini cukup baik. Kalau kita amal, kita akan berjaya. Dalam buku itu saya petik semua yang saya tahu ada dalam Quran. Jadi kita tak ikut agama Islam, lepas itu kita gagal, kita bermusuh, kita bunuh orang. Benda ini semua dilarang. Itulah itulah yang menyebabkan orang Islam di mana-mana pun gagal. Negara mereka tak diperintah dengan baik, tidak ada keadilan. Semua ini bertentangan dengan agama Islam.
Thank you.
Perlu memahami kandungan Al-Quran dengan erti kata yang sebenar, kan Ben? Okey Ben.
Terima kasih Nak. So, Tun, let's talk about leadership, kepimpinan. How would you describe your leadership style as the fourth Prime Minister? how would you describe your leadership style as the seventh Prime Minister?
Yeah, when I became Prime Minister, I know that I will remain Prime Minister for so long as I satisfy the people who are behind me, the people I was leading. So I must know what they think. And once I know what they think, I work towards it. For example, when we became independent, people were poor. Why were they poor? Because there was not much investment, not much economic activity. So among the things that I decided I should do was to be business friendly, because the business people create jobs. Yes, they make money, but they create jobs. Without their creating new business, there's no job. And there is no job, then the other people will gain nothing from independence. So I was business friendly. I decided that we need infrastructure, and we build the highway, north-south highway, plus we build railway from Gemas to Ipoh, and I wanted to build from Johor Bahru to Padang Besar. And we build new airports. Why? Because of tourism. We build new ports, West Port in Port Klang, and we build Tanjung Pelepas, we build Pasir Gudang. All these things were infrastructure needed to develop the country, because when the country is developed, people enjoy a better life. So for as long as I concentrate on that, I think people will support me, because I am doing something that benefits them. And indeed, I was able to stay on as Prime Minister for 22 years, because people voted me every time. See, although there were accusations that I was a dictator, I was corrupt, I had cronyism and all that, but despite those accusations, which were never proven anyway, the people still supported me. Every election, I won with a two-thirds majority. So I was able to govern with a strong government that can implement, can develop the country, grow the economy, become financially independent, and generally bring about a change from a poor country into one of the Asian tigers.
Nice, nice. And Tun, we're just going to give you a little bit of a challenge, just because it's all about, this topic is about leadership perceptions as well. We're just going to name all the prime ministers, and you just give us what you think of them in terms of your perception of them. One word in Malay, one word in English. Malay. Okay. Okay.
Well, I'll try. Yeah,
Our
I
first.
told you know, it is one thing to demand for independence, but once you achieve independence, what do you do? That we don't know. People who fought for independence didn't know exactly what they want to make the country do things that benefit the people. So during Tunku's time, one of the reasons why the Tunku was after winning the independence, was rejected by the people, because the Malays say we don't get anything from independence. We are like we are. We are still poor. So they were very angry about that. So Tunku wants to do good for the country, wants independence for the country, but to fill the independent country with good things is something that the Tunku does not understand. He was happy. He said he's the happiest prime minister in the world, because I mean, Malaysia did not have all those revolution, fighting, and all that when we became independent. After Tunku came to Razak. Now, Razak was more conversant with the problem. When he was head of Magaran, he realized the reason why there were race trials was because the Malays were unhappy, and because the government at that time was weak. Because in that election, although the Perikatan won, but won with a small majority, and also lost Penang and couldn't form a government in Perak and Selangor. So that created a feeling that this time the Perikatan had lost. So in order to overcome that, what Tun Razak did was invite the opposition to join the government. And this he succeeded. He got Gerakan, SUPP, PPP, and PAS to join the government and make the government strong. That's his solution to the problem that we face. And then as far as the dissatisfaction of the Malays with having no change in their life, he introduced Dasar Ekonomi Baru, a new policy on economy which is supposed to benefit the Malays. How it is to be done is not spelled out. He merely says kita ada dasar ekonomi baru. So he solved those two things which had caused the Malays to riot, which had caused the country, the Perikatan, not to perform as well as before. So when he did that, and that was later on adopted by and he changed the party name from Perikatan to Barisan Nasional. So it's a kind of unity government, Barisan Nasional. So when he became Barisan Nasional, he was able to lead a strong government. When Tunku stepped down, he took over and he led a strong government which adopted the policies that he created during the emergency. In other words, this government is a Barisan National government, a kind of unity government, and implemented Dasar Ekonomi Baru, trying to help Malays to also get their share of the wealth of the country.
Tun, I think we're losing.
Just Wi-Fi. Yep.
Okay. All right. Okay, Tun, continue.
Yeah. Well, that's all I had to say about that.
Okay.
What
Right.
is there anything that I have not answered?
No, just you answered it extremely well, very detailed. But in terms of Tun Hussein, if you could describe one word about him, I mean your perception of him, and then after that, Patlah, and then Dr. Sri Najib, Tun Razak, and then after that, Tan Sri Mahyudin.
Yeah.
Just one word.
Well, Tun Hussein did not function well because he's never very healthy. He was sick most of the time. And he decided that as Prime Minister, he must choose a deputy. And he chose a deputy. It happens that I was one of the three vice presidents of UMNO, and he chose me. Although I was the one with the lowest number of votes, he chose me, and I'm grateful for that. And even later, I wanted to have his son, Hishamuddin, to become Prime Minister because I was grateful to Hussein. But Hussein never stayed long enough to create any change in the government. After Hussein, of course, I became Prime Minister for 22 years. And when at the end of that time, in fact, after 18 years, I wanted to resign. But at that time, we had a crisis, a financial crisis. We had a problem with Anwar Ibrahim and all that. And I thought I would stay back and put things in order, which I did. For 3 years, I stayed back. So when it was already 22 years, I thought I should step down and give way to some people younger than me, because 22 years was too long. Tunku was 13 years. Razak was only 5 years. Hussein also 5 years. But I was 22 years. So I decided that I would resign. But I believe that whatever good that I may have done would be continued. So there will be little change if I resign. And who should take over? Of course, the deputy. That was Abdullah. Unfortunately, 1 week after I stepped down, he changed. He changed. He didn't stick to his promise. For example, to build the railway, the double tracking electrification of the railway, he stopped that because he says, we have no money. And then he decided not to build the so-called crooked bridge because we have no money. I was very disappointed because he had promised he would continue. That was later on, of course, he tried to make use of Terengganu's money, and he was associated with people like Patrick Badawi, and then the fourth floor people and his children being involved in government affairs. And at that stage, I decided that if not doing the right thing, I resigned. I resigned from UMNO. And then I had always pushed for Najib to be to succeed Abdullah, which in the end Abdullah agreed. And when Abdullah stepped down, Najib took over. I was very happy. I thought that Najib would be like his father. His father was a great man who had developed rural development and all that. So I thought Najib would be like his father. But within a short while, I realized that he's not like his father. He's different. He, later on, he actually told me that cash is king, which means that by using cash, you can succeed in politics. But he had no money. So he had to make money, good money, big money. And that was when he set up 1MDB, borrowed 42 billion ringgit. The government had never borrowed even 1 billion, but this company borrowed 42 billion ringgit, and this is 100% owned by the government. If anything goes wrong with 1MDB, the government would have to rescue it. And sure enough, this was what happened. And the money that he borrowed was partly used to buy power plants. We don't know how much, but he paid a very high price for the power plant. Some of the money disappeared. And then he was found to have billions of dollars in his own account. So I thought, this is not right. A prime minister should have so much money, should not have so much money. So because of that, I decided that once again, I had to leave UMNO because Najib was a bad prime minister, a man who destroyed a lot of things, destroyed the economy of the country, destroyed the finances of the country, destroyed even the administration of the country. So that is why I left UMNO, and then I started to work towards removing Najib.
Okay. Tun, speaking of future leaders and past leaders, who do you see now as the future leader to carry the torch? Name one or two leaders that you see have the potential.
No, I cannot do that because if I name anybody, it appears like an endorsement, and that is not right for me to do that. We have to watch the leaders. What is happening now is that almost all politicians are corrupt. They are in politics to make money for themselves. not to serve the people. So I hope that people themselves will not be corrupt. Because if the people vote because they are corrupted, they are given money, they vote for people who are not suitable, they are going to have a bad government. But if the people are not corrupt, and if there are candidates who are clean, then choose the clean candidate. Then we can go back to a clean government that will focus not on what they earn as ministers or as prime ministers, but because they serve the country, they serve the people. And that is very important because Malaysia has tremendous potential, but it needs a good leadership to exploit the potential.
No? Do you have any further questions?
Nope.
Okay.
I'm passing this to you, Ben.
Okay, no, because if there's no further questions, we just got two more questions for you, Tun. But one question is our guest, our special guest today, okay? And probably asking this question on behalf of all Malaysian students. I'd like to introduce you to my daughter, Kyla Natasha. Assalamualaikum, Tun.
Hi.
Okay, louder. What's your question for Tun, sir?
When are we going back to school?
Yeah.
Okay. Dah rindu kawan tu Tun, dah rindu kawan-kawan dia kat sekolah tu Tun.
Yeah, it is. We don't allow schools to be open because if people mix among themselves, they are likely to get infected with his COVID-19 disease. So we cannot open the school now because of that danger. But for the moment, we can study at home through the TV and all that. But the school will have to wait until number one, all the teachers and also all the children below 17 are vaccinated. We find that people who are vaccinated are less likely to be infected. So the teachers and even the parents of the student should be vaccinated. Then I think it is safer to open the school. But when you open the school after vaccination, there is still some danger. But the danger is not as great as the danger now. Now it can lead to the person losing his life. But if he is vaccinated, the likelihood is that he will get only mild symptoms. It won't lead to death. But of course, we cannot be certain. But we have to look after the safety of the children going to school and their freedom so that when they go to school, they can mix with their friends, and play game and all that. That is what we hope to see. But you have to be patient. Until we are vaccinated, we cannot yet open the school.
Okay. Kayla kena sabar, okay? Tun cakap kita kena bersabar dulu. InsyaAllah tak lama lagi Kayla boleh berjumpa dengan kawan-kawan Kayla when everything is safe. Tun, speaking of education system kan, you were keen to take on education ministry when PH came into power. Kalau kita nampak sekarang ni, kita depan cabaran yang sangat-sangat besar dalam masalah pendidikan negara kita. Masih tak ada approach lagi yang sesuai yang boleh kita gunakan dalam sistem pendidikan kita untuk anak-anak kita. Dan saya rasa satu benda yang sangat-sangat penting ini, apa yang mungkin outcome berbeza yang kita boleh buat dalam sistem pendidikan kita sebab anak-anak kita dah ketinggalan 2 tahun pelajaran Tun.
Ya, saya berpendapat bahawa sistem pelajaran kita, pendidikan kita sudah tidak sesuai dengan zaman. Sebab itu saya minta untuk jadi Menteri Pelajaran, tetapi PH tidak membenarkan Perdana Menteri pegang jawatan lain. Jadi pada masa itu saya tak boleh jadilah Menteri Pelajaran. Tetapi apabila Menteri Pelajaran bersara, ada kekosongan, saya jadi Menteri Pelajaran sementara. Pada masa itu saya cuba nak perkenalkan certain changes yang saya fikir perlu. Kita pergi ke sekolah untuk dapat ilmu, which is very good. That's what we want to do in the school, dapat ilmu. Tetapi ilmu boleh disalahgunakan. Kalau kita tidak mempunyai nilai-nilai yang mulia, kita akan salah gunakan ilmu. Saya selalu bagi comparison dengan sebilah pisau. Sebilah pisau boleh diguna untuk kita ukir benda-benda yang cantik dengan pisau itu. Ataupun kita boleh bunuh orang. Bukan salah pisau, salah kita. Jadi kalau kita bagi ilmu kepada anak kita tetapi tidak bagi tahu cara menggunakan ilmu itu, mungkin dia salah gunakan ilmu. Sebab itu dalam pelajaran agama umpamanya, perlu ada tekanan terhadap the value system of the Muslim. Kita kata orang Islam ni bukan saja agama, tetapi it's a way of life. But that is not stressed in the school. That is not. Yang kita stress untuk akhirat. Kita nak semayang, nak puasa, nak keluar zakat, nak bawa kerja haji, nak mengucap 2 kalimah syahadat. Itu saja yang kita utamakan. Tentang mencuri, kita tak stres. Tentang membunuh, berkelahi, tak bersaudara, itu kita tak stres. Jadi kita perlu semai nilai-nilai yang mulia dalam sekolah. Dulu kita bergantung kepada ibu bapa menyemai nilai-nilai yang mulia. Tetapi sekarang ibu dan bapa bekerja, tak ada masa yang kualiti untuk anak. Jadi mereka tak memberi pelajaran. Lagipun mereka juga tidak begitu arif dalam menentukan nilai-nilai yang mulia. Sebab itu dalam sekolah, selain daripada mempelajari apa yang dikatakan agama Islam, kita juga perlu semai nilai-nilai yang mulia. Itu yang saya cuba nak perkenalkan. Selain daripada itu, banyak lagi benda yang perlu dibetulkan. Mengajar umpamanya, kita masih depend guru datang ke bilik darjah dan penuntut ada dalam bilik dan dia mengajar. Tetapi kadang-kadang guru itu baik, kadang-kadang guru itu kurang baik, tak cekap. Jadi murid menjadi mangsa. Saya berpendapat bahawa di zaman ini kita ada kebolehan untuk rekod dan playback. Kita boleh ambil guru yang the best teacher, rekod dia punya lesson and play it back in the class. Jadi the teacher in the class serves to guide only. Dia menjadi pemandu. Tetapi lesson itu datang daripada teacher yang terbaik mungkin, yang ditayang di dalam sekolah. Either on TV or on the screen or on projectors and all that, kita boleh. Dan kita boleh playback. Kalau nak dengar lagi sekali apa dia kata, kita playback. Kita boleh record. Kita balik rumah boleh tengok lagi. Jadi these are the new technologies that must be used in teaching. But we are still stuck with the idea that only teachers can teach. Yeah, teachers can teach. But as you know, English language teachers, for example, we speak different kind of English. So if we record English as it is spoken and we play back in the class, we can hear real English as it is spoken. taklah jadi bahasa separuh Melayu, separuh English, dan kadang-kadang pronunciation pun tak kena. Sebab itu, we can learn from the best teacher through recordings and playback. This should be introduced in the school. But when I try to promote this, people think that I'm trying to make money for myself. I don't need the money. I don't need to make money for myself. I just want to change the system so that we will learn from the best teachers and be better taught, better able to understand the lesson. Itu ada lagi lah perkara-perkara yang saya cuba perkenal, umpamanya macam vision school, where all the three mainstreams of education are located on one campus. Mereka boleh bercampur. Ini good for the building a national identity. Banyak. Saya mempunyai banyak ideas, but I'm frustrated because I cannot push forward my ideas.
Tak apa Tun, you are sharing your ideas here with Great People TV and we sangat-sangat very grateful and syukurlah. But final question Tun, because I did promise your team that we keep this under an hour and we're doing quite okay. Just final question, next week is Hari Malaysia. What's your advice to all the Malaysian people right now?
Ya, Hari Malaysia. Ya, kita perlu ingat bahawa kita datang daripada sebuah negara yang bernama Malaysia. Untuk itu, semua pihak perlu korban. Umpamanya, sebelum daripada ada Malaysia, kita ada sebuah negara yang dikenali sebagai Tanah Melayu. The official name of the peninsula after independence in 1957 was Persekutuan Tanah Melayu. So the identity with Melayu is very strong there. But when we say Malaysia, there is a link to Melayu juga. Tapi Malaysia bukan Melayu. Macam-macam orang Malaysia. Jadi kita sacrifice nama kita untuk nak bersatu. Tetapi kadang-kadang ada orang yang di Sabah, Sarawak yang membawa idea Sarawak for Sarawakian, Sabah for Sabahan. Ini memecah belah dan kita tak boleh jadi sebuah negara yang satu, yang maju bersama. Dulu Sabah dan Sarawak miskin, tetapi setelah menjadi anggota dalam Malaysia, Sabah dan Sarawak menjadi lebih kaya daripada mana-mana negeri di Semenanjung. Ini kerana kita ada kerjasama. Ialah ada lagi yang boleh kita buat dan kita perlu lakukan supaya kita fikir diri kita sebagai Malaysian. Jadi pada 16 hari bulan ini kita nak rayakan Hari Malaysia. Hari kita mansuhkan Tanah Melayu untuk jadi Malaysia.
Well,
InsyaAllah.
Inshallah, Tun. I mean, great advice and thank you so much for sharing. But it is now 10:59, so we've done quite well with time. Tun, thank you so much for your time. Please kirim salam your family. Hana, do you want to say anything before we call it a day? Or call it a wrap?
Kami di Great People TV mengucapkan ribuan terima kasih kepada Tun dan juga tim Tun kerana sudi bersama-sama dengan kita pada hari ini di Great People TV. Kepada anda, thank you for tuning in. Jangan lupa untuk like, share dan juga subscribe kami di Great People TV on Facebook.
Yeah, Tun, if you don't mind doing us a favor, when you go onto your Facebook, just look for Great People TV for this interview, press like and press follow. That's what we're telling everybody.
Terima kasih Tun. Terima kasih Tun. Salah silap, minta maaf. Thank you so much for joining us. Alhamdulillah.
Assalamualaikum, Tun.
Assalamualaikum Tun. Have a nice day. Thank you everyone.
Waalaikumsalam.
Bye.